Cool. Want to jump right into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, who wants to summarize the case? Any takers?
I can do it. Okay. So it was this couple, and they were married, and she already had a daughter when they got married, so they were just kind of starting a new little family, and they had a baby, but unfortunately he passed away. But they didn't like work through that together really. They just kind of had the funeral, but then moved forward and didn't really talk about it or address it again. And then they had more children, and he was working really long hours to provide for the family, but she didn't feel like she was like connecting with him. And so there felt like this disconnect within their marriage. And she tried to talk to him about it, but he perceived it as, oh, he just needs to work harder. And so they were there's like a wedge between them. And then the kids, they didn't have great relationships together. There was a lot of fighting, like verbally and like physically. And then she was pregnant and she had twins, and pregnancy was kind of touch and go. The birth was kind of touch and go, but both babies came home. And then they made it to about 6, and then one of the twins got really sick, and they had to take him to the hospital, and he was on life support. And then they, as a family, made the decision to take him off the life support machine so that the machines could be used for his grandma that was also in the hospital, who had a stroke. And so the little boy passed away. And then a few years later, when the oldest was 15, he had a dream that his younger brother like came to him, but he was an adult, and he told him that he like came to that family with the understanding that he wouldn't be there very long. But then they saw, like, as a family, how that death had like brought them together, and how like their relationships had improved, like both within the marriage and within the children. And the brother was telling his sister about the dream, and she had the same dream as well. So they both saw how that death was like a tragedy, but it also ended up like being a blessing within the family as well, because it like changed the relationships and it changed how they saw each other. So yeah, that's kind of like the summary. If I missed anything, jump in and let me know. But
no, that was good.
That sums it up pretty well.
Okay.
All right. List any principles or concepts from the course that can be applied in offering help or direction for the family. I thought a big one that applied to this family, like in the long run, was their cohesion, because obviously the couple had a lot of issues to start out with, and they didn't deal with the issue of their first child dying very well or effectively. And that in the long run, though, with like Jerry dying and all the different things that led up to that, and all the things that happened after that, is like you can see where they went to really, really low cohesion or none at all, and then like spiked up after Jerry's dying. And I think that was a really important concept that we could apply to that family.
I'm trying to type up your thoughts.
I think too, I can't remember what his name is, but he was the guy, I think it was Roos. He was the guy that talked about like the roller coaster that like families go on. And so like there's highs and lows, and like I feel like this family, like they had multiple tragedies. Like I can't imagine losing like not one but like 2 children. And so just like going through that, and like I'm sure like there was a certain level of healing after they lost their first son, but then like tragedy kept striking, and then they lost their other son, they lost their grandma. So like there was levels of healing, but I don't feel like they ever like completely like addressed the problem. So I can't remember what his name is, but he's the one that like talked about like the roller coaster, and like there's lots of up and downs. But yeah.
I'd written down some. Let me pull them up so I can share them. I guess maybe I understood the question differently, but I was listing different tools that we've been learning through the course of how they could specifically, excuse me, implement them in their life. So like as newlyweds, the couple can apply the family council like into their weekly routine to open up their communication and have it filled with love and spiritual guidance. I think, you know, right from the beginning, if they would do that, then they probably would have had a lot different relationship going into all of their struggles. Another one I wrote was that each family member could take time to meditate regularly to receive the direct effect that meditation has with empathy, especially considering the struggles that they were facing as a family, where they just were arguing so much and fighting. Those some two things that I had seen.
I liked what you said about meditation, because I said the same thing, that like they could like take time to individually meditate, and then I said like keep a journal, like a mood log, for lack of a better word, but like call it a journal, I guess, and just like address like the things that they were feeling and like where those emotions were coming from, and then like changing their negative thoughts to positive thoughts. So I said mood logs and journaling as well.
Right.
That could be included in coping strategies too.
Oh yeah, I see that on there.
Cool. Let's see. List any relevant risks or dangers that the family and its members face.
I think with all the tragedy in that family's world, it would be so easy for them to just stay angry and just hate everything. And so one thing is the risk of just deep depression.
I had depression on my list as well.
I also think like they can, I mean, maybe like also be mad at each other, like direct that anger towards each other instead of like the actual like issues that are going on.
I said that I'm honestly surprised that they didn't divorce in the long run.
Right?
Because of, I thought that's where it was leading, and like that was where the culmination of the whole thing was going to go, and I was like, oh wow, no, it was even worse than that. But I think that would still be a big risk factor if they let how they reacted with their first baby happen again, that the family could break apart.
There's something in my other classes, it's called stonewalling, and it's like basically where you just like become super unresponsive to like any kind of like conflict or confrontation. And I think that that would be like a risk too, because I feel like there's so much that's happened within their marriage and their family that they just wouldn't want to talk about any of it, and so they would just be like really unresponsive to like any type of like conflict that would come up like as a result of that.
I definitely see that.
Okay. Anything else for that one? Okay, relevant opportunities presented to the family as a result of the closing.
I mean, one that stuck out to me was they had the opportunity to take Jerry off life support, so that, you know, unbeknownst to them at the time, is helping Peter's grandmother. Not sure how to word that, to type it up.
Well, you could just say that they had the opportunity to help someone else, even though it resulted in a hard decision for themselves.
Okay.
I think something, because She said like try to keep our faith aspect out of this class, but they brought up that they are LDS, and I think that they had the opportunity to go through a faith crisis, but it didn't seem like they did.
I didn't quite hear the last part of what you said. I'm sorry.
Oh, just that they could have gone through a faith crisis, but it doesn't seem like they did. Seems like they were pretty strong in what they were believing. They made sure they were going to church every Sunday, and at least that's what I got from it.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to like keep the gospel out of it, but they did like bring it up, and I liked how in their family council they like brought up like the spirit and like the body, and I think that they like taught their kids like more of like God's plan kind of thing, and I think that that helps them like have a sense of understanding as well. But I think it was a good opportunity for them to like use a family council and to not just make executive decision like as a parent, like they involved all the children, so I think that was good.
No important relationship considerations. I don't know if this is right, but I kind of said the same thing that I did earlier, is that they seem to live like two separate lives within the same family, even as they were having more kids. And that kind of takes an interesting path when you're like in a family. So I think like the consideration that they stayed together even though they necessarily weren't together emotionally.
I think important relationships too aren't just like spousal, but like the like relationships between the children too, because like they lost a sibling, and so I think that that like really affects the dynamic as well. So it's not just like the kids between the parents or the parents with each other, it's like how the kids interact with each other because they lost a sibling and a playmate and whoever they shared a room with. And there's going to be like signs of him in the home like after they come home after he passes away, so I think like those relationships between like the kids are important as well.
Yeah, like how they said that they like didn't fight again. They like it completely just changed the dynamic of the sibling relationship as well.
I also think like the individual relationship between like the parents and like the children, so like the mom and another child, make sure that they're like, you know, talking about it and keeping like an open dialogue about the whole situation.
Anything else for that one?
I think just the relationship of the entire family unit, because they did eventually come together and work as a family unit. So it's, I don't know, kind of bringing all of the relationships together. I don't know if that counts as a relationship consideration, but I have thoughts on that. I don't know.
I think it does, like the family as a whole, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. any more coping strategies besides like the meditating and what did you put? Meditating, journaling, and mood logs?
Reading a journal, meditating, mood logs, family councils.
Therapy.
Say it again.
Therapy. Like individual and family.
Do you have a specific type of therapy in mind, or just to like have them go visit with counselors? Or
Well, I put like communicative therapy that teaches them how to talk through their issues and their feelings and not just internalize them.
I think also something that could be good is them practicing like mindfulness, because I think it would be really easy for them to like get caught up in their grief and like get caught up in like all the things that are missing, like because of Jerry's absence, and that there's like that hole within the family. So I know like from the reading, like they talked a lot about like mindfulness and doing things like very purposefully, and I think that that could help them like move forward as well, and just realize that like even though like a lot has changed within their family, that like some things are still the same, that they can move forward. Yeah, and so just like being mindful and like deliberate in their actions, I guess.
Anything else? Cool. Recommendations to supporting or involved parties. I think they should get into a support group for like the siblings who have lost a sibling, like kids who have lost a sibling support group. It just gets them talking and being able to listen to others.
I think too, like couples therapy between the parents, because I think that there's a lot of baggage that they haven't unpacked yet, like with their first loss, like of their first child. So I think like couples therapy could be really beneficial for them.
All right, and then any additional resources you want to provide or suggest? I said stay in church, but I mean that's obviously not professional.
That's what I was thinking too.
Cool. Anything else?
I'm at a loss for that one.
I don't think so. Do you know like how long our responses need to be for each of those? Like, did it say?
Yeah,
It
says it. Sorry, go ahead, Maria.
Sorry, yeah, 100 to 200 words per bullet.
Okay, so like even as a group, then they need to be that long.
I don't think so as a group.
Okay.
Well, we're not turning it in individually. We're only turning it in as a group.
One, right?
We're only submitting one, yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know like how long our answers needed to be like from our group, like to make sure that we like got everything thoroughly. I guess that was my question. So
let me see if I can see if it says for sure what that has to be on there. On the rubric, it just says briefly summarize key points, describe 3 key principles or concepts, 3 relevant risks or dangers, 3 relevant opportunities presented. It looks like most of them have to have just 3 points.
So just like 3 things specific.
Yeah.
All right.
It
We
doesn't
need a couple more.
Yeah.
So, recommendation to supporting and involved parties. I know the last case study we did involved, sorry, I've got a really bad cold. It's like was referring to other people, like family members outside of their immediate family, or friends, or church members, or people from the community, of how the outside help could be helping the family. That's my understanding of what it means to supporting / involved parties. So I think one recommendation that we could give to someone to help the family an easy one is like, oh, we'll bring them meals during the funeral services, or do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's just a common one, I feel like, especially within the church, but it is helpful.
Well, I think you could put that. I mean, the case study was about it, and they brought it up. So I think if they brought it up, I feel like we can include it.
Okay.
So
you could just phrase it like seeking, I don't know how to phrase that, but just like within the church community, like seeking support within like their congregation, like their church community. Like we don't have to make it like LDS specific, but like I think it is important to like have that support system like from their church community as well.
Yeah.
and then we need more resources as well. That one's hard because it's like everything else is already talked about. What about, this is just like totally throwing this out there, but what about like the husband and wife? I mean, we've talked about family councils, but what if the husband and wife went on weekly dates to try and improve that relationship?
I like that.
I mean, it definitely can't hurt, so.
Or we could have them like suggesting like family dinner every night.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, we could do like weekly date night and family dinner.
Or even like a family night out once a month.
Yeah.
I was thinking you could do like a daily, what's it called? When like you're in a really bad situation. Oh, debrief, like a daily debrief.
Oh yeah. Debrief. Brief. How do you spell debrief? Oh, okay.
We could also have them like volunteer other places. I think that's a good way to like overcome grief is like serving. So like volunteering at like soup kitchens or like little league sport things, or I don't know, like a daycare. I don't know, but like volunteering I think could be helpful.
I think that's really good, like getting involved in like other things so that they're busy and
Take up space.
All right, I have to go for sure now. So I'll see you guys later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, I think that's good enough.
Do we have anything else?
I don't think so.
I
Do
think
you guys want to look over what I've typed up real quick to see if you agree with it? Or
yeah, I've been looking as you've done it.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, so have I. So I think it's good.
Yeah, I think they're all concrete examples. I think they're good. We answered the question, so
Yeah.
Everyone feels it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
I think it's good.
All right.
Cool.